Devon, you said that we never got our just due. Can you, from your perspective, explain what you mean a little better?
Well, it was one of those things where a lot of things that we had accomplished, over the years just seemed like it wasn't recognized in some aspects, whether it be by the promoters or whether it be by some of the fans, I just felt that a lot of things that we had done had went unnoticed. But there were times where it hadn't. But I think for the majority part of it, some of it was unnoticed. And sometimes we felt that we were not treated in the way that we should have been treated in some of the places that we, wrestled in. But it was just one of those things where we had to fight and scratch and crawl our way to the top. We had to make people stand in attention and know that we're the Dudleys. We go in there. Not only do we beat the hell out of people, but, we entertain and we can captivate an audience. And no matter what, no one is going to outdo the Dudleys. No one is going to outperform us. We are, and I will say this, and whether you want to call it cockiness, call it whatever you want, but yeah, we are the greatest tag team, at that time when we were in the game. And I just feel that sometimes it was just either not appreciated or, like I said, just went unnoticed. But I think going into the Hall of Fame, I think this will definitely prove that we were one of the greats and that we should be in the name with so many other, wrestlers that have come before us, especially LOD, the Road Warriors.
And I think you are. I think right now, and maybe this wasn't the case a decade ago or 6 or 7 years ago, but I mean, right now, I think people put the Dudleys with the Road Warriors, with the Midnight Express, with the Rock and Roll Express. When people talk about the greatest tag teams of all time, I think the Dudleys is right on the tip of everyone's tongue.
Absolutely. And I think, again, not only from the ovation that we got in the arena, and regardless if it was in Philadelphia or not, just social media alone, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it just blew up. And, I was very proud and honored to, see that and to just know that, like I said, it didn't go unnoticed. It might not have been, shared through social media, or it might not have been, really, said in so many words, but just that alone just showed me how many people really, like the Dudleys and how much of an impact that we had on this business. I think that was one of the things that Bubba and I wanted. Mm-hmm. We wanted not only to be the greatest tag team in the history of this business, or I don't want to say the greatest ever, but one of the greatest, but we wanted to make an impact, whether it be just on the fans or whether it be within the wrestlers coming up themselves, and I think we've done that. I think when me and Bubba came back to WWE in 2015, so many guys opened up their arms and welcomed us back. Not to mention, it was overwhelming to hear a lot of the new WWE superstars say, hey, I watched you guys growing up. I remember when you guys put Mae Young through a table, the legendary matches with the Hardys and Edge and Christian. I just want to say thank you because you guys are one of the reasons and one of the main reasons why we're in this business today. New Day was definitely one of them. And, we've had great matches with New Day, but I remember numerous times Xavier Woods coming up to us saying that when he was younger, he was at the Cobb County Civic Center in Georgia when we did the pay-per-view, and how that match right there that we did basically made him want to be a pro wrestler. So it's when you hear things like that coming from the younger generation, it makes you proud. It makes you know that, like I said, what we did make an impact. And I was just very happy to hear a lot of those young guys, because a lot of times, this younger generation, a lot of them don't have respect. A lot of them, are disrespectful, not only to the veterans, but just the business itself. But to see these guys show us the proper respect and to say things like that really made me proud.
Dave, I think what Devon is also trying to say is when it comes to our history, we believe that people have only seen the tip of the iceberg. Mm. They only kind of know about ECW and WWE. The Dudley Boyz were very successful. Team 3D was just as successful as the Dudley Boyz. And it's that part of our career that kind of gets lost in the shuffle. What we were able to accomplish, and some of these championships that people kind of forget, we were the last NWA tag team champions. We were the first ever TNA tag team champions. We were the 2-time IWGP tag team champions. We beat the Great Muta and Aki Bono for the All Japan, big tag championship crown. There's so many other things that me and Devon have done together that have kind of got thrown by the wayside, where I think that's where Devon means, where we don't get that credit that if it was a singles wrestler, everybody would be swooning over.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, even with a Kurt Angle, about how a lot of fear in what's going to happen to those amazing matches when it comes to TNA. Are they going to be lost? Are they going to be forgotten? Because you guys had tremendous matches with the Wolves in TNA, and is there a fear, Devon, of those matches in that part of your career being forgotten?
I don't know so much being forgotten. I mean, with social media, YouTube, just everything in general, it's kind of hard not to not know, what we've done within the 10-year absence of not being in WWE. Again, some of it might be, but I think the majority of it, I think will never be, because of the fact that, again, it's very hard today with social media and all the outlets that you would have to be able to look up, when we were gone from WWE from 2005 to 2015, what we did and how we helped so many other organizations, rise in the tag team field.
When you mentioned about the locker room, and you mentioned about the respect that you got from some wrestlers, and maybe even some disrespect, is that the biggest difference between wrestling when you guys were starting in the 90s to now in 2018, the respect and the respect of history when it comes to pro wrestling?
Well, I will say I don't think Bubba and I have ever encountered disrespect. I think a lot of the younger guys were fearful of their lives if it ever happened. So I don't think we've ever inquired that. But I do hear of other veterans that have displayed their disrespect by some of the younger talent, whether it be on the independent circuits or in some of the major federations. So it's one of those things where I guess every generation goes through that, because you always have that young, hungry lion that's trying to make, their success and trying to achieve what, some of the ones have come before them achieve. Sometimes they go about it the wrong way. I think a lot of times it's because of their upbringing in the business. One of the reasons why Bubba and I opened up Team 3D Academy is because when we left the WWE in 2005 and we were actually getting ready for All Japan, we went around to different schools. We went around to the indie circuits and was just trying to, get back into that ring shape. We noticed how a lot of the younger guys were not being trained right. And when we noticed that, it was one of those things where, we said, well, the business has given us so much, we need to give back. And that was when Bubba and I decided to open up Team 3D Academy and train these guys the right way. There's one thing about Team 3D Academy that, you will learn, and that's respect. Not only respect for yourselves or the veterans, but the business in general. And that's what it all boils down to. If you don't have respect for the business or people that have come before you, then chances are you're not going to make it, and then chances are you'll never be anything in this business. I think Bubba and I have always said that, in order for you to be taught the right way in this business, you have to be trained by someone who has been somewhere, who knows what they're saying, who knows what they're doing. Because some Joe Schmo who never made it in the business gets a warehouse, puts a ring in it, and calls it a wrestling school. If that gentleman never made it in this business, how can he teach you how to be someone in this business? It'll never happen. And I think that's why you have so much disrespect from a lot of young wrestlers. And again, Bubba and I have never inquired that because, like I said, if we did, we would beat the hell out of them, and that was just the truth. So, again, it goes to show you, if you're brought up the right way, then you won't inquire that disrespect. But if you're brought up the wrong way, then chances are you will.
Devon, it's very interesting what you're saying because, Bully and I have talked a lot this week about Ronda Rousey and her now being a part of the WWE. And you're right. When I think of a wrestling school, I'm thinking, all right, you're getting taught how to, perform an arm drag and a body slam. But what you're saying is very interesting to me because it's not just about what you do in the ring. It's about what you do outside the ring as well. How to perform in a locker room, how to associate yourself with other wrestlers in a locker room, how to do business. I mean, there's more to the pro wrestling business than what just goes on inside a ring.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it all boils down to learning the right way. If you're learning the right way, then you will understand that. It's those that aren't, who are in business for themselves, who don't realize that this is a dance. If you're on Dancing with the Stars and, your dance partner is off, then chances are you won't advance to the next round. It's the same thing as pro wrestling. If you can't dance in that ring and be on the same page with the guy that you're in there working with, then you might as well just hang it up.
Wow, that's interesting. Talk a little bit about that transition, because you said every place that you've been to, and it's very, listen, we may never see a tag team like the Dudleys again, somebody that's successful in multiple promotions and win that many titles throughout the world. Talk to us about that transition from ECW into the WWF.
Well, it was something, again, you go from being hardcore and extreme, pushing the envelope, even when that envelope fell off the edge, you can't really do that in the WWE. And although at the time Vince was trying to do that, he was trying to push the envelope because, like I've always said and Bubba's always said, you can't deny that ECW did not change the face of pro wrestling. If it wasn't for ECW, there would probably be no Attitude Era. No one was ever thinking about pushing the envelope the way Paul Heyman did. And it was one of those things where the business had to change because I think people were tired of the, in no disrespect, but say your prayers, eat your vitamins and all of that. They were happy to see somebody like Stone Cold Steve Austin give the finger and, retaliate and beat the hell out of their boss. That was what ECW made, in Austin. That was what ECW was about. We were against, the establishment. We were rebels. We went out there and did what we wanted to do. In pro wrestling, you didn't do that. And I think when ECW first started doing that, it made a lot of people stand in attention and go, wait a minute, this product is different. And not only is it different, but, man, this is me. The blue-collar guy. This is us. This is what we believe in. We wish we can go give our boss the middle finger. We wish we can go beat the hell out of him, if he gets us mad. And, leaving ECW and going to the WWE, at first it seemed like we weren't going to be able to do that. Bubba and I both felt that we weren't really able to be the Dudley Boyz when we first got there because, Bubba was stuttering and I had to smack him in the back of the head, which is what we did in the very, very beginning when I first came to ECW. And we felt that we were just so past that. With everything that we had done leading up to our departure in ECW, the Dudley Boyz were repackaged and, had a new persona to them. And so we were hardcore, we were edgy, we were in your face, the promos that we cut where we started riots, that's what the Dudley Boyz were all about. So by the time we got to WWE, we really couldn't do that. It was only until we had the match with the Hardys in Madison Square Garden at the Royal Rumble was when people in WWE said, wait a minute, I think we have something. The stuttering stopped, and we were able to be the Dudleys. Now, we weren't able to sit there and grab a mic and start telling people, where to go and how to get there. But, we did just enough to let them know this is what the Dudleys are all about. And I remember they wanted us to put Terry Reynolds through a table leading up to that Royal Rumble and to make us heels. And I believe Bubba told Vince that it's not going to work. And Vince asked him, well, why is that? And he said, well, because we're going to do it in Philadelphia. That's wrong. And because they're not going to boo, they're going to cheer. And number two, they're just going to like that. It's edgy. It's something that's never been done before, at least on the WWE level. We've done that in ECW, and we've seen the response. So it was kind of like we knew. And he was dead set on doing it. And when we did it, exactly what Bubba said was going to happen happened. It basically freaking blew the roof off the place, but even more when we did it to Mae Young. I mean, who would have ever thought taking an 80-year-old woman? Now, I don't think I've even seen this coming, because it's one thing to do it to Terry Reynolds, who, at the time was a young lady, very good looking, and, was a sex symbol in WWE. But to do it to somebody's grandmother, I don't think we saw that coming. You just don't, in any way show, any negative or harm to old ladies. But when you watch that back on YouTube or the WWE Network, and you see when I took Mae Young and I put her on top of Bubba's shoulders, you can look from the shot where everybody stood up, because it was almost like they didn't believe it was going to happen. And everybody's looking towards the runway to see who was running down. And as they're looking and Bubba stood up, they realized no one was coming down. And when he took her and threw her through that table, that place erupted. And it was one of the things that really put us on the map. And from that point on, the Dudleys were really born. 20-something years, 15 years ago that happened, and people still talk about that one today outside of the TLC matches.
Well, how could you not? If you saw that happen, I mean, it's not like that's a moment you're going to forget. It's embedded in your brain. So it doesn't surprise me that people still bring that up today.
I mean, in my opinion, looking from a fan standpoint, if I took my grandmother to a WWE event, I would want her to definitely stay away from the Dudleys, because there's no telling what they could do.
Devon, let's kind of get back to the Hall of Fame for one moment. Me and you have always kind of said when it came to the Hall of Fame that it didn't define us. If we get inducted into the Hall of Fame, that's great. But if we never gotten inducted into the Hall of Fame, so be it, because we always believed that we got inducted to the Hall of Fame every night we went through the curtain to perform for the fans, because the fans are our Hall of Fame. And I believe that me and Devon have had an incredible relationship with our fan base from day one, because me and Devon were always accessible. You could come talk to me and Devon. You could come, hang out and have a drink with us at the bar, get our autographs, yada, yada, yada. But I know this Hall of Fame means a lot to you because of your kids. So what will it be like for you that night with your family there, watching you achieve that Hall of Fame ring?
It will mean a lot. And because of the fact that as a kid, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and I've said this story numerous times, I've, didn't have a father in my life that basically told me or taught me right from wrong. My mother had me at a very young age. She was pregnant at 15 and had me at 16. My grandmother was the fist of the family, and she was the one that kept everything going. And, statistically, when you look at it, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, growing up in the projects with everything that could go wrong around your environment did. statistically, I'm not supposed to be the way that I am right now. The human being that I am. Statistically, they label you as a loser or you're never going to make it in this world. I basically didn't listen to any of those statistics. I basically wanted to make something out of myself. I wanted my kids to be proud of me, to be able to look back when I'm gone and the guy upstairs takes me, that my father accomplished not only his dreams, but did what he set out to do, and that's be a fantastic individual, a fantastic person, someone that you can go to and talk to and things of that nature. I wanted my boys, to see that. A lot of men are not good role models to their kids. I wanted to be that role model. So for the twins, and I've got 4 boys, but Terrence and Terrell, who are now in the business as well and doing extremely well, for them to have been there since day one. They were there during the ECW days. They were there during the early WWE days. They were there when Bubba and I left and went to Japan, and watched Bubba and I. They watched us in TNA. And, of course, they watched the return of the Dudleys coming back to the WWE. For them to be able to see what their father went through to get to this point in his life, to me, that means the world. Because it just shows that no matter where you grow up, no matter what hurdles are in front of you, no matter what trials and tribulations, no matter what storm, there's always going to be light. There's always going to be sunshine. You have to weather that storm, and you have to get past it. And I believe that I've done that because Lord knows, and Bubba will testify to it, I've been through some up and downs. And when most of those up and downs would have put you out for the count, I refused to lay down. I refused to lay down. I kept going forward. And for that, I want my children to be able to see that and to know that no matter what, you keep going because God has always been my strength. God has always been my refuge. And I can't just express enough how grateful I am that when Bubba and I walk up on that stage at the Hall of Fame on April 6th, that they're going to be sitting right there. And I may not be able to hold it together when I talk about them because sometimes I get a lot, teary-eyed because knowing, again, what I went through, having, going 3 jobs, to try to make ends meet, going back and forth to Johnny Rogers Wrestling School and trying to keep everything afloat, knowing what I had been through to get to this level. To me, that's a legacy that I am very happy and that I'm very proud that I will be able to leave and that they will be honored and privileged to say, that's my dad.
Wow. Well, Devon, congratulations to you. I can't wait for WrestleMania weekend. But before I let you go, I have to ask you to share at least one story about Bully. There's got to be one story that our listeners would absolutely love if you shared.
Oh, man. Well, there is one. I mean, there's so many, which I'm sure he can attest to on me, but a lot of it we can't put out there. But
it is satellite radio, so.
Yeah, this is true, but but remember, I worked for WWE as a producer now. It's PG still. But there is one story, and I think me and Bubba tell it all the time. We're in Madison Square Garden, and we're getting the heat on Ron Farouk, and
they were getting heat on you.
No. They were getting. Was it on me or was it Ron? No. It was us.
Are you telling the hot tag story?
Yes.
It was the Dudleys versus the APA versus Edge and Christian. It was a 3-way match. We eliminated Edge and Christian, and then the APA was getting heat on you.
You sure? Okay. Well, maybe they were getting heat on me, and we all doubled. We get down. We're about to make that hot tag, and Ron made it to Bradshaw. I made it to Bubba. The place erupts, and as you hear the scream, yeah! All of a sudden, it just dies, and we're like, "What the hell?" I turn around. Bubba tripped coming into the ring. And, he got very angry. And when Bradshaw waited for him to get up, Bubba double-legged Bradshaw and start beating the hell out of him. And Bradshaw's covering up going, I didn't make you trip. I didn't make you trip. and so we get in the back, and Bubba has his head down, and Farouk, Ron Simmons, comes up to him and said, hey, Bub, what's going on, man? What's wrong? And Bubba just said, Ron, man, I'm just embarrassed. And Ron says, well, what the hell are you embarrassed for? Don't worry about that. I mean, hell, everybody gets embarrassed. Everybody has things like that happen to them. So you tripped in the ring, so what? He goes, yeah, but Ron, you don't get it, man. My mom was out there, my dad, they were all sitting in the front row, my fraternity, and, and at the time, my fiance, she was sitting in the front row. It's just embarrassing. And Ron looked at him and said, well, yeah, that's pretty embarrassing. Yeah, you got every right to look at it.
Good stuff, man. That is great. Thank you, Devon, man. I am so happy for you. I can't wait to watch you and Bully get inducted in the 2018 class of the WWE Hall of Fame. Thank you so much for sharing your time today.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And, again, I've been hearing nothing but, great reviews about the show. And, ever since Bubba came on, and, you guys are telling it like it is. You're keeping it real. And, again, thank you for having me on here. And nothing but the best of luck to you guys going forward.
Well, good. Maybe you can get me into the Hall of Fame, because that Bully's not going to let me get in that building on that weekend. So maybe I can get some tickets. What do you think?
Listen, we get 15 comp tickets, and Devon has 17 kids, so there's no way you're getting a comp ticket.
All right, well, I'll be watching on the WWE Network. Thank you so much, Devon. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.